Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie if you're new here, and today we're going to be looking at the Orly Surrealist collection, which came out for fall a couple of months ago, so I am a little late to sharing it, but I want to give a quick thank you to Beyond Polish for sending me this collection. I'll have some information in the description if you're interested in picking these up or just saving money on Beyond Polish's site. I have a code down there for you guys. But yeah, let's just get into the swatches. So the first shade is Persistent Memory, a deep red cream that's perfect for fall. It looked a little bright there in the bottle shot. This is much more color accurate, just for reference. The shade is pretty much your standard oxblood red shade. It has a really creamy formula that gave me great coverage on the first coat where it was nearly opaque. I think if my nails were shorter and I didn't have such a strong visible nail line, I could probably get away with one coat, but I ended up doing 2 coats for full opacity. And while I am a fan of this shade in general, I guess I'm just not particularly excited for this one since we see it so often. But I don't really have complaints about it otherwise. It's a great option if you don't have a deep red. The next shade is Stop the Clock, described as a richly pigmented chocolate metallic shimmer. I don't think I would have ever come up with chocolate metallic as a descriptor, but it actually works really, really well. This one had a perfect formula that was super easy to work with, and it actually gave me full coverage in one coat. While I probably wouldn't wear this as a full manicure, I would love to use this for some details in my nail art, but I could see this working really well in November. Next we have Elysian Fields, which is described as a moss green cream. Now, as you probably know, I'm not a fan of these ugly, pretty colors that are kind of like baby poo, but I still don't think I agree with the description of moss green because there's just so much yellow and brown to this. I feel like moss is a nicer shade of green. But that aside, this one did have a really good formula. It gave pretty great coverage on the first coat, but I still needed 2 coats for full opacity. But yeah, I just personally can't get behind this shade. So please sound off in the comments if you're team ugly pretty colors or not. Next up we have Metamorphosis, a teal polish with a copper shimmer finish. This one had a bit of a crelly formula where I didn't find it to be as opaque as Stop the Clock, but it still gave really great coverage on the first coat. I could only just barely see my nail line in certain angles. So I needed a second coat to get full opacity, but I still really, really love this shade. I think it has such a beautiful contrast between the copper shimmer and the teal base, which, as you probably know, I am a big fan of deep, dusty teals for fall. So yeah, this one is definitely really unique to my collection, but just beautiful regardless. The next polish is Ceci n'est pas Blanc, which is described as an eggshell cream with a hint of warmth. I actually really, really like this shade. For one, I'm a huge sucker for the name. It references a famous surrealist painting of a pipe with text that says Ceci n'est pas un pipe, which translates to this is not a pipe. So the name of this polish translates to this is not white. It's just so satisfying. But anyway, onto the polish itself. This one had a really lovely formula and it was fully opaque for me in 2 coats. And I just can't recommend this one enough. I think these off-white shades are so pretty for fall. Just such a beautiful palette cleanser, such a great base for nail art. It's so refreshing. And lastly, we have Dreamers Awake, a classic light gray cream. So like the rest of the collection, this one had a really smooth formula that gave me great coverage on the first coat. And it's funny that I'm really only mentioning it now on this last shade, but I really love the Orly brushes. They just fit so snugly around my cuticle and it just makes application a dream. But back to the shade, I can see why some people thought this might be kind of boring or I guess underwhelming. And I do generally agree with that. I think it would have been nice to see another shade kind of similar to Stop the Clock or Metamorphosis as opposed to a gray cream, but if you don't have one in your collection, then this one's perfect. Now onto comparisons, we're starting with Persistent Memory and Zoya's Suzie. So this was from their Rose palette last year, but I'm pretty sure you can still get this. You can tell right away that the Zoya is a bit darker, but they're not exactly dupes on the nail. I think Persistent Memory has a bit of a brick tone to it, but either way, I love both. For Stop the Clock, I'm comparing it to Olive Ave Pigment on the left and Sumac on the right. So initially I thought that Stop the Clock would be closer to Sumac, but it kind of looks like it could be a perfect in-between. It definitely is very similar in terms of formula. This is one coat of each. So while they're not dupes, I still think they're all great options for this time of year. Next up for Ceci n'est pas Blanc, I'm quickly showing it next to a true white polish so you can see the difference. It's definitely not as bright or stark white. But as far as a potential dupe, I immediately thought of Snow from Orosa, which is more of a jelly, crelly-ish formula. I always did like this Orosa, but the formula would just be so annoying to work with. Sadly, this isn't an exact dupe like I thought it would be. It looked really, really close in the bottle, but on the nail, Orosa Snow looks much whiter. So either way, I would recommend the Orly. And lastly, for Dreamers Awake, I have Olive Ave Storm, which almost looks kind of purple here. You can see just how neutral the Orly shade is. I definitely would recommend it if you need a true gray cream, but both have really great formulas, so I'm interested to hear in which one you like more. So that wraps up my swatch and review and comparisons for the Orly Surrealist collection. So as always, I would love to know what your thoughts are on this collection, because when I first shared them on Instagram a couple weeks ago, not that many people were excited. It wasn't as negatively received as the OPI collection, but it wasn't that far off. I think more people were excited about the Essie collection, for example. And I, am not the biggest fan of one of these shades in particular. And for the white and gray, they're not unique shades or anything. But I don't know, there's something about this as a collection that I think just still really works well. So I kind of like it. It's grown on me over the weeks that I've had it sitting on my desk. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are, if you still hate this collection, or if you're into it, or if you're just kind of indifferent about it. Let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.